All right, former Libertarian candidate for governor Larry Sharpe. Larry's been on many times to go after some of the issues that just make you go, "What?" Like Larry, right before we went live, I said, after watching this interview that Tucker just dropped with Doug Mackey, I'm thinking through all the things I've ever said on the internet and wondering when the FBI is going to show up at my door. I mean, I swear I was just thinking that before you and I connected on here. I'm like, okay, is it going to be the medical stuff? Like, what are they going to get me on? I don't know. But okay, I want to play this quick clip real fast because in case people are unaware, Douglas Mackey was sentenced. The sentencing is kind of old news. He got 7 months in federal prison. But the interview with Tucker just dropped, and it's really interesting what he says about the whole thing. And I mean, basically, this guy shares a meme on Twitter that talks about how you can text to vote. This is 2016 for Hillary. So you can text in a vote for Hillary. He says he thought it was funny. It was totally a joke, but they get him for election interference. That's what they came after him for. When did they come after him? After Joe Biden was elected, 7 days after Joe Biden was elected, 4 years after he shared the meme on Twitter. And they don't tell him what's going on. They handcuff him, drag him out of his house. And then when they release him, they let him go like 20 miles from his house and make him basically walk home or find a ride home. And I mean, if you do a media search right now about it, it is celebration after celebration. 100%. Right-winger, alt-right, conspiracy theorist. This guy is finally held to account. Democracy is saved. And it's been spun as if he was making this concerted effort to interfere with the election. Hillary Clinton even said that. She said he was being very specific and like he had planned it and using algorithms. And, and it's just like right? So let me just play this clip real fast, Larry, before you give your opinion. It's just like 1 minute of this interview.
Just again to restate, you had no quote algorithms.
No.
Hillary Clinton has no idea what an algorithm is, needless to say. So you were a solo operator. You're one guy on your laptop. But the claim is that you somehow stole people's right to vote. Is there any evidence that that's true?
No, and the government said that they didn't have to show any evidence of that at trial.
And they don't.
They said the fact that there was a conspiracy was enough. They went around and interviewed people because they would have loved to put someone on the stand who didn't vote because they thought they could text their vote. They couldn't find a single person. They couldn't even find people that they went and looked up people that texted the meme, the number supposedly 4 years ago, and they couldn't even remember doing it. Or they thought it was silly and they wanted to see what would happen.
They actually interviewed people? How did they know who these people were?
They subpoenaed their phone numbers.
Not really.
Yes. And their voting records.
Of course.
What did this effort cost?
I have no idea.
But millions of dollars.
Millions.
It had to.
No doubt millions.
So much.
Yep. 100%.
So the government couldn't find a single person whose vote was, as Hillary Clinton said, subverted by your tweet.
No, and they looked very hard.
This is FBI money being spent.
How is it a conspiracy?
So there were some group chats where people were creating these memes.
Yes.
And I was a member of some of them. Some of them I wasn't even a member of. And they said that because these people are in this group chat talking about creating memes, that you're a part of the conspiracy. Even though I wasn't talking in these group chats, really participating in them at all.
Doesn't matter. All they'll do is they'll interview other people and
so your trial,
they'll flip.
So that's okay. I'll stop it right there, and then we can play a little bit more in a minute. But yeah, Larry, I mean I wanted to play that part basically because I mean there's so much in this 30-minute clip on Twitter that I think is worth listening to. But the main piece
we could be talking about this one clip for easily an hour. Yeah, you're right. Yes.
Yeah, I mean basically like what I get out of this is that the government does not need any evidence.
None.
To convict you of anything. Like that's what I got out of this.
Yes.
I mean, if they can decide your intent on anything, and they don't have to find
They don't have to decide your intent. That's this will drive me. I think I've told you before. I actually consult with defense attorneys. I've watched this happen more than once. People say, Larry, why do you hate the FBI so much? Because the FBI spends the vast majority of its time doing garbage like this. The vast majority of time the FBI spends and wastes your money and its time and validates itself is on crimes that are not crimes. The number one crime that's not a crime is a thing called wire fraud. Wire fraud is not a crime, but they've made it a crime. What wire fraud is, whenever you hear wire fraud, understand bogus, terrible, BS FBI charge. What does that mean? That means fraud that went over wires. That means it crossed the state or went over wires somehow. I'm not joking. That allows the FBI to charge you for anything. I was on a case once where a guy supposedly committed some kind of a crime. He did not, but supposedly he did, in Queens. He spoke to the people in Queens. He did the job in Queens. And the crime, I'm doing that in quotes, that he committed was not a crime in New York State. So what he did in New York State was absolutely legal in New York State, but federally it was illegal. The feds came in and said, oh, you used your cell phone, and because you used your cell phone, that signal might have bounced off of a tower in either New Jersey or Connecticut. That could have happened. Because it could have happened, that's now wire fraud, and now they charged him. And he was convicted. I want to be clear. The thing he did in New York State was legal in New York State. It was federally illegal. Why? It was political. He was doing political things in New York State. In New York State, you may in New York State legally both be a consultant as a politician and be a politician. That is legal in New York State, and everything that was in New York State with New York State people. But as federal, you can't. You can't be both a consultant and a politician federally. So they charged him with that, and he actually went to jail for that. And wire fraud is not, it's like saying murder versus knife murder. Is it murder or is it murder or not, right? It's fraud or it's not fraud. They call it, no, it's not murder, it's knife murder. No, it's murder. That drives me crazy. And conspiracy and RICO. What that means is just you were in a room, and literally right now, you're in a room talking to people, and someone's talking about robbing a bank. Regular conspiracy is supposed to be, now once you add RICO made everything terrible. Prior to RICO, conspiracy had to be something like this. You and I, Allison, are talking about robbing a bank. As you talk about robbing a bank, that's not a crime. We talk about it all day long. We must talk about it, and then we must agree to do something, not what he said, a silent agreement. That's not a thing. They made that up. You and I have to agree, and then one of us must then make one step towards it. That's how the conspiracy law actually works. So you
and Larry, you should. I don't think that part was in there because I think you're talking. I mean, you must have watched the whole clip, but I don't think.
Yes, I did.
So just clarify that for people who are watching. In the Tucker interview, he asked, like, did you have an agreement to commit a conspiracy? Yes. You know, and he said they said I had a silent agreement. And Tucker's like, Correct. Did you? And he said, how would I have a silent agreement with somebody on the internet that I've never met? What does that even mean?
Stuff that prosecutors make stuff up all the time. Now people say, well, aren't prosecutors cool like on like TV shows? No, most prosecutors are horrible human beings. That's the truth. Most are terrible. Not all. There's some decent ones, but most are horrible. And all they want is a conviction. They make things up. They literally go to the jury and go, that's a silent agreement. What's a silent agreement? How do you have a silent agreement? But I gotta go one step further. As I was walking down my story, I was getting there. If you and I are now here talking about this, and in the past, what had to happen was we had to have an agreement, you and I, you have to have proof that we had an agreement, and then we have to make one step towards it. Like I go and rent a car, or I go and buy a gun or whatever. I do something. Then conspiracy. And that to me is fair and just. But now it isn't. With RICO now, all they do is go, they talked about it. Yeah, they did. Then they go to you and they say, you know what? With all these new laws, Allison, we're going to put you in jail for 30 years unless you turn on Larry Sharpe. If you turn on Larry Sharpe, maybe you'll do 5 or maybe none if you can give us. And now what are you going to do? You don't want to go to jail for 30 years. You start saying how, yeah, we agreed to everything and we did all the stuff. You see that happening constantly. Every single time you find a witness who turned on someone else, don't believe that witness. Don't. And again, if you're a juror, this, by the way, is jurors' fault because the jurors keep believing this garbage. Stop believing the state. Stop believing the government. Stop believing prosecutors. Stop believing DAs. They're liars. They are liars, and they may lie legally. They cannot be charged when they lie. It is okay if they lie, and they lie all the time. All they care about is convictions. Jurors, if you're a jury, please stop believing them. If there's no evidence, vote not guilty. If there's no evidence. But here's the problem. The problem is the government can and will, as you said, without question. Everybody is guilty. The question is, when will they target you? If you think you're safe, you're not. This guy thought he was safe. Lots of people think they're safe. You're not. And, oh, Larry's being doom and gloom. There's another guy. If jurors stop accepting this and just go, no, I'm not believing it, this begins to go away. I'm sorry, I went a bit off, but you got me going. This drives me crazy. I can't stand this stuff.
Right. Well, I'm trying to get to the part so I can show everybody what this meme looked like, because it was just like it's on the thumbnail of this video, but it was just a text, this number,
yes,
whatever for Hillary. And I want to throw this your way because Sharpe of YouTube says that I wouldn't call misdirecting voters a meme. What do you think about that? I mean, let's play devil's advocate here.
Sure. Free speech is free speech. That's what it is. The problem is now we have a new concept, which is speech equals violence. That's never been true before. Now that is culturally. The ACLU is happy about this. No, redirecting someone to anything. Whose responsibility is to know when to vote? You, knucklehead. You. Whose responsibility is to know who to vote for? You, knucklehead. You. Just because I go, you should vote for this guy. You believe me? Well, you're an idiot and you lost your vote because you're dumb. And that's okay. That's how the world works. I can say what I want. I'm not official. I'm some guy on the street. So if some guy on the street says the world's ending tomorrow, because he's got his sign, the world's ending, don't bother voting because the world's ending tomorrow. Should he go to jail because he's redirected someone's voting? That's what he just did. He told you don't vote because the world's ending tomorrow.
I interviewed a guy like that.
That's called free speech. Yes. And that's why there are people who tell you don't vote. Are they now redirecting people to vote? No, it's garbage. That's you're mad for one or two reasons. One, because you just love the state and you love the system and you don't want anyone messing up your system because you're doing well, number one. Or number two, you're mad because your guy or gal might lose.
I wish back when I was covering this guy who thought the world was going to end, it was back in 2012, I think, but it would have been interesting to bring up this legal question because, he sold his business and everything. And when the world didn't end, I interviewed him again about, does he have any regrets or like, what does he think?
I'm sure he doubled down.
No, he actually said, I was wrong. If somebody tells you to sell your business, don't do it. He said, don't do it. I was wrong. I got duped.
Good for him.
But anyway, it was a really fascinating story. Back in the day when newsrooms would actually let you cover stuff like this. I don't know if they would have let me do it now, but I think it's interesting because where's the line? Because somebody can't call. We have an 87-year-old friend, former pastor. He helps me out with our 3-year-old that they're hanging out getting tadpoles right now. And he gets scam calls all the time saying they are somebody that are not.
That's different.
Okay, tell me what the difference is here.
That's different, right? Because at that point you are targeting an individual. That's a crime. You are now telling that person you are targeting an individual. Of course, that's not free speech. That's targeting somebody. Free speech is I go in front of my house, I put on my social media, I hold a sign saying, hey, everybody, vote on Thursday. They changed the day, whatever. That's me. That's just me. You have a choice on all those things. But when I start targeting people, that's when it changes, right? It's like free speech about saying, I don't like this group of people. They're terrible, whatever that group is, versus saying, let's go get Jane. Let's go get Jane is a crime. I don't like certain people is not a crime. I mean, it's bad and you shouldn't say that, but that's not a crime. But now in America, we've changed that. I don't like certain people is now considered violence and now crime. So therefore, naturally, you should do a thing is now a crime. And that's the problem. Speech is not crime unless it is targeted. If it's targeted, it's a crime. That's the difference. I'm sorry, should be a crime.
Okay. Okay, well, I'm going to throw one more back from Sharpe of YouTube. He made a meme. Wait, hang on. Let's bring it up. He made a meme that said, vote for Hillary. That's kind of funny. Mm-hmm. Vote for Hillary here on your cell phone and don't have to wait in the lineups. That is borderline illegal. I wouldn't publish that info. What would be, I mean, obviously the DOJ is arguing, and I'll show that in a second, that, yeah, it's election interference, but, where is the line? I mean, where is the line? I don't know. Larry? When would it become election interference?
It literally says Hitlery.
It does say actual Hitlery?
It says Hitlery. Yes.
Well, this does, but I mean, the meme didn't say that. The meme said Hillary.
It doesn't matter, right? Can you say it's borderline? Sure, it's borderline, but we're supposed to be. We're not, and that's my whole point. We're supposed to always err on the side of free speech. That's what America is supposed to be. If it's borderline, that means no, right? That's the point. We are supposed to be innocent until proven guilty. That also has changed. We are now guilty until proven innocent. You've heard people say it. They have their day in court to prove themselves innocent. Yeah. That's not how it works. That's not even in our founding documents. It's the reverse.
Yeah,
you're innocent until proven guilty. So borderline means no by default. Mm-hmm. That's how it's supposed to work.
Yeah, Katie Kane, WTF is borderline illegal. It's either legal or not. That's
Thank
true.
you, Katie. Yes, if it's borderline, it's legal. That's how it works.
Funny story. I have to tell this story because I like 10 years ago, before I met my husband, I was dating a guy who was just like a commitment phobe. But I kept listening to like, oh no, I am. Well, I finally asked him, like, on a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you? Because like, here I am, I'm thinking I want to get married. And he says 7. And I'm like, God, you know, some women might go 7. That's pretty good. I mean, it's better than a 5. But I'm like, that doesn't sound right. So I called my dad and I said, Dad, he just says he's 7 out of 10. And my dad said, this is one of the best things my dad's ever told me. He said, Allison, commitment is a 0 or a 10. You don't sort of commit. You don't kind of commit. You either commit or you don't. And so
that is right.
7 is a 0. Everything less than a 10 is a 0. And I was like, what do I do? And he said, well, do you want commitment? I said, yes. He goes, dump him. And that was the beginning of the rest of my life. So I had to say that. I had to ring it up. All right, let me real fast promote some wine. Larry's was so good at this. So we're going to just do a couple sponsor reads real fast and tell you what you should be drinking when you have Thanksgiving.
Do not, by the way, if you're listening right now, don't you dare zip through this. Don't you dare zip through this. You care about Allison. You're listening to her show. Listen to her pitch wine. Listen to it. It does matter.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, get it before the FBI gets you. All right. That's the best pitch. They're coming for all of us, I guess, at some point. So get some before you can't drink it anymore. I don't think they serve this in federal prison. Anyway, they're high altitude, extremist altitude, all about extremists. It's amazing. I realized one day that like I talk all about extremism. I mean, extremism is the new black. Like it used to be orange is the new black, but extremism is the new black. And so this is extremist altitude wine. It pairs with all your extremism, whether it's a meme extremism, it's right-wing extremism, it's free speech extremism, it's Larry's wearing a hoodie extremism, whatever it is. So get your Allison wine from it. It is just genuinely very good wine too, in fact. And you get 50% off the wine and 50% off shipping. And it, like Larry said, it is a great way to support my work. It's one of the best ways to support my work is to keep going after the sponsors. If you're already a wine drinker, I say this because Larry told me to say this and it's true. You're already a wine drinker. You have no excuse to just go to the grocery store because you can get some great wine that also keeps me in business. If you have a hangover the next day, we all know you can go to some twinenginecoffee.com. This is organic, high altitude, also extremist altitude roast from Nicaragua, and also a very pro free speech company. I know the owner. It's a small family run company, and they're extremely pro free speech and have been with me also since the beginning. So if you're a coffee drinker, then what's your excuse? It's great coffee too. We've got light roast, dark roast, and tea. And it's organic, like I said, it's very good. And then finally, if you need some vitamin D, I've been taking Green Pasture products. I take actually the fermented cod liver oil concentrated butter oil blend, but I've been taking it for years. I went like 3 years without going to the dentist after taking this, and I still had no cavities after having cavities all the time. And it is just a great product. And I was taking it long before they were ever affiliate partners. So they were the ones who let me put me up in the hotel and let me get a press pass and everything for this food conference I just got back from. They're also a small family run company, great company, and it's a great product. So highly recommend. Okay. So Larry.
No, I'm not done. Let me touch this real fast if I could.
Please.
Cod liver oil is wonderful. I take it myself. It's great. I drink coffee. I don't really drink wine anymore, but I do drink coffee. These things are important, right? So if you're sitting here saying, I watch Allison every day, I watch her all the time, I care about her, and I do like this stuff anyway, It is a wonderful way to get the things you want anyway, which is awesome. Try them. If you don't like them, you don't have to get them again if they're not good for you. If they're good for you, keep doing it, because it does matter. You're going to be drinking anyway. So please go ahead. So do the right thing while doing something you enjoy.
Thank you. And that gave me a second to remember that I forgot to put up the URL. So it's greenpasture.org, and you can use the promo code Allison10, or just click the link in the video description or pinned comment. You just use that. That's my affiliate link. But greenpasture.org, promo code Allison10, if that's easier for you. Okay, so going back to the story of Douglas Mackey. Oh, by the way, that you did win Sheriff of YouTube over. Larry is very sharp. So see, you can still disagree and get along. I think the thing that I'm curious from your perspective is, and I'll bring this up too. I really wanted to do a quick search and show you what the
he brings up a very valid point, which is really important, is that when the federal government targets you, they can decide where they want to try you, because it's across the country. So they're going to try you in an area that is anti whatever they want, right? So,
and that's happened with January 6th people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And that's another thing that actually I found in common between Douglas Mackey and like I had Stephen Horn on, who was recently convicted of, entering the Capitol. And he has held that he was covering it as an independent journalist. But he basically said that, like, they never really, because of the way that they filed the case or whatever the charge was, they didn't really have to prove he was guilty, like you were saying. Or bring evidence or whatever. It was so very weird. But same thing, like, that they try you in the court that's like DC apparently has like a lower level court, but they try you in the other, whatever it is, the district court, which is I don't know.
They try you where they know they can get judges and or juries that will convict you.
Yeah.
And then what happens if you hire a lawyer? The lawyer knows that. The lawyer goes, dude, we're done. Like, there's no way. So then they plea, right? Because they know they're going to lose. What I'll tell you always in America, and this is a sad part, if you can afford to write a check for 6 figures or more, you can get a fair trial in America. If you can afford to write a check for 6 figures or more for your defense, you can get a fair trial in America. And if you're guilty, you can get fair sentencing. I'm not about guilty people going free. I want guilty people to get a fair sentence, right? I don't want you going to jail for 20 years when you should go to jail for 2, right? Fair sentencing and a fair trial. If you can write a check for 6 figures, you'll get that. If you write a check for 7 figures, you have a chance of getting off, even if you're innocent, even if you're guilty, you have a chance. If you can't write either check, you are guilty. It does not matter whether you've committed a crime or not. Once targeted, if you can't write that check, you are guilty. Accept that it's true and work accordingly. And I wish that wasn't true, but that's how our system currently works. It works because everyone is against you. The press is against you, as you saw with this gentleman. The judge is against you because he's a former prosecutor, because most judges now are former prosecutors. So they're against you. The prosecutor's against you. Of course, he's supposed to be. And sadly, the jury's against you. The jury, when you walk in that room, the jury assumes you're guilty. They just assume you're guilty. When in reality, what a jury should think is, why didn't he plea? If he didn't plea, he might be innocent. But they don't. The jury assumes that because you're there, you're guilty. So the only person on your side is your attorney if they are not a public defender. At least half the public defenders are also against you because they just want to get you off that you're getting paid. They just want to get you off their roster. They just want to plea you out. That's it. So at least half the public defenders are also against you. So you have no chance. And it's because the system sucks, not because the ideas suck. The ideas are awesome. The system is broken.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I got preachy again.
No, it's good. Phil Indeblank is basically saying that, like, we should be taking this a lot more seriously, but we're just laughing about what can you do? Oh, well, okay, I laugh because there's a lot of ridiculousness about all this, but it isn't funny. I mean, I think the Constitution is pretty close to, like, put a fork in it dead. I don't know how to resurrect this. Look, I was fired for this podcast from my government job. Okay. Yep. I lost our family health care. I don't take this stuff lightly at all. I think this is a big mess. But yeah, Larry, I mean, let's really talk about
ran for office twice trying to stop this. I take this insane.
And this is a huge problem, Larry. How does this affect, like, when you're talking about you ran for governor, you had to deal with all this. because I just want to show the media's influence on these storylines, and the reason we're just doped, like it's the opiate of the masses, doped up by what we get information wise, because every single headline is basically like, here's the top result on Google that the social media influencer Douglas Mackey was sentenced. And then everything after that is just basically repeating the DOJ press release that he's like a troll Trump supporter and he was spreading false information to suppress votes in 2016. They just take it hook, line, and sinker straight out of the DOJ, and Google ranks the DOJ at the top. What's the role of the news corporations in all this? And like specific, like what you talked about, trying to run and change the system.
You bring up such an important piece. I cannot tell you how important it is what you just brought up. The reality of it is that the major news stations spend the most money on advertisements on places like Google and such like that. And because of that, excuse me, Google will do what it can. So will YouTube, will do what it can to put them to the top. Why? It's their big customers. Lots of money on, I know you're powerful, Allison, but you can't write the big checks that CNBC can. You just can't. Right. So they're going to be.
I don't have that much Allison wine promo.
There we go. People aren't buying enough of your wine, clearly. So we got to buy some more wine. But so as you do that, they're going to put them to the top, which sucks for us because now that coming to the top means you are more valid. Now, there's good and bad news to this. The bad news is that's going to be that way for a while. And most of the people who watch mainstream news are older. They're in their 50s and above. And because the good thing about that, the good thing about that is there are less of them now, and more younger people are starting to come into the fray now and also not watch these things. The bad news, though, is that the older people vote in droves far more than the younger people do. If younger people start voting more, there are a lot more younger people watching shows like this and others like this, which give them actual details of what's going on. I got to tell you, we have lots of options to watch, right? Which is a great thing. What happens constantly is what I do is I see something, I go, that may not be right. And that's when I check people like you. I check Kim Iverson. I check people like that. When something's like, that's not right. What's Allison saying about this? Does she have a guest on this? That's what I do, right? And I think a lot of people are like me. Now, I'm older, so I still watch mainstream news also. I kind of have to because of what I do. So I still watch the mainstream news. But at the same time, I still go through and I'll look at what other people are saying because it doesn't make sense to me. So I think more and more people are doing that. But to your point, it's still there, right? And what I learned from running for office is that most people in the mainstream media are lazy. And I don't mean that as an insult. I mean, it's just they do it because they've been so overwhelmed. Most
people are lazy, Larry.
True. That's true. But you know this. You were in mainstream media. You know that most are.
Well, lazy and just like not curious. And I think a lot of them subconsciously don't even, I mean, they don't understand how strong the desire to belong and fit in and everything is within them and how scared they are to walk outside the line or color outside the line. And yeah, you're right. And there are certain professions where that doesn't really matter. I mean, like I've said before, the lady who's checking me out at the grocery store, I'm not trying to say that that's not an important job, but I'm saying like, I can fact check her right there. Like I can watch her. She's scanning my groceries. You know, if she's just like mindlessly, whatever, I go, wait a second. And she's just dealing with me. It's just my groceries. But like once you have somebody who's starting to interpret reality for you that's like far away, they have a reach of like millions of people. It matters that you're not just like scanning the groceries. I can't fact check you in real time. And also I don't have the power to. I'm not standing there. I can't go call your manager, you know, and you don't care even if I did. So yeah, I mean, it's a people problem, but the problem is that like journalists, they think they're somehow better people. That's one of the real problems. Is
but mainstream people. Does. Not the guys like me and you.
Well, yeah,
right? But mainstream does.
The people who, the big brand, big box journalists. Like I have a friend who's, I mean, she's a very good friend of mine, but man, we really butt heads about this. And we were like, the other day we were talking and she was doing the typical thing where it's like, well, most people think we just get it wrong. So I was talking about somebody I interviewed who specifically said her station where she works was often getting their story wrong. And she's like, yeah, but to be fair, everybody says that. And I said, well, yeah, and they're usually right. They're usually right.
If everybody's saying it, you might want to think it could be true.
Yeah, but that's exactly where they're deluded because they take that as a reverse endorsement that their parenting is right. Because like when my daughter says, I don't want broccoli, and I go, okay, well, yeah, see, because it's healthy, you know.
Right.
You know, my daughter likes liverwurst, which I take great pride in, but you know,
that's like, impressive.
It's the same thing, though. It's like they think, because she wrote back and said, yeah, but they just don't want to hear the truth. That's how deluded journalists are these days. The more people that don't like what they're doing, they take it as a reverse endorsement that they are really on the truth, and you guys just don't like it. And so it's never going to work. I mean, that whole, like, you know, there very, very few people are going to wake up in the industry and say, dang, why do they hate us? And are they right? You know?
Yeah. Yes. Well, it is happening. I think you do see it happening. The mainstream media is getting their butt kicked in many ways. Many of them are failing. So that is an advantage, right? But the part I meant with laziness is what I learned when I ran. When my team first started putting out press releases, we would try to put out, intelligent press releases with what's happening and all that stuff. Nobody paid attention. I mean, nobody. Then I just said, okay, look at the type of story they usually run. Write the story for them and present it as a press release. We started doing that. And the amount of times people just took our story, scratched off my press person's name, put their name on it, and printed it. I was shocked how often that happened. They're like, oh, thanks, free content, and just put it up. They didn't, nothing, just put it up, word for word. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, wait a minute. So when I spent the time doing the homework, I got ignored. When I just put it into their format that was easy content, they just posted it. Oh my God, this is easy. So that's why this is happening. If you just keep doing it, they'll just do it, right? And then they'll blame somebody else. Well, I got it from so-and-so, according to so-and-so, according to so-and-so. And then they're done. But the worst part is, to your point, there is literally no response. There's no repercussions for being wrong. They'll do some small minor thing and, oh, we made a mistake last week. We should have said 1 million, but we said 10. Sorry. And that's it. And that's the end of it. And they keep going. But again, I say it again, I do believe it is changing.
All right, Larry, I'm going to throw you another piece of criticism. All right, so you can respond to it. Okay, let's jump down here. Oh, and by the way, this is local, so don't forget AllisonMarrow.locals.com, and you can be on my editorial board, go one-on-one with the most censored people on the internet. I think it's a great value. It's $5 a month, and you get an exclusive media analysis show every week, and you get to ask questions. So come on. Okay, Sovereign Night, Larry with Lery, Sharpe.
No worry. All good.
You forgot to say the other half of public defenders are some of the best attorney in the game, and they are still here because they care about what they do. Y'all are so depressing. Everyone keeps saying we're losing. All the people that were trash lost in my local election. None of the trash ballot measures passed, and it was a mix of D's and R's. No one wants to do the work and see who actually won and why.
Let me respond to that, and let me give you a mea culpa. Okay. Correct. Sovereign Night, you are right. To me, it's assumed, but I should not have it assumed it. You are correct. I will say I'm sorry. Half the public defenders just don't care, but the other half are literally magical. You are correct. I apologize for that. You are right. There are public defenders out there who I wish I could be as awesome as they are. They go out of their way. They literally can't sleep. They literally sacrifice everything to try to give people fair chances, and people who are hurting fair chances. So yes, I completely bow to that. You are right. I should have said that. To me, that's obvious, and it's not obvious to everyone. So yes, and yes, there are half of the public defenders are amazing, awesome people. I apologize for that. You are correct. The second, what else did she bring up? I was making sure.
We're losing. We're depressing.
Yes. Sadly, we are losing. I know it's depressing. However, I did give you a good part too. Right now, we're losing. That's true. The ACLU is no longer our friend, right? Free speech is now violence. We are losing. The however piece is the pendulum is starting to come the opposite way as more people start taking the time and energy to look at people like Allison and others. So I think that is happening, but there's still we're going down a bit before we head back up. That's what I think, but I think it is beginning. The critical mass or the tipping point hasn't happened yet. Mainstream media still has more influence than it should. At one point, that won't be true. And when that's not true, that's tipping point to where, okay, now free speech becomes more important, more valuable. People see it back and forth. So I do think it is starting to come back.
Or maybe it gets, like, to your point, maybe it gets so bad that finally a big box brand journalist gets nailed at some point, and then they start to care because they're like, oh, it affects us now. I do think a lot of the concern that, or lack of concern that is exhibited by the press is a direct result of like what they care about. If they're concerned about something, they're going to project those fears onto society, and then they're going to say that we should all be afraid about it. If they're not concerned, then they're going to try to minimize fears about it and say it's not a big deal or spin it in a different direction. I do think a lot of the problem is just a very human problem of people who have issues that should just not be in the business of reporting and journalism. It's
Well,
and
I think
honestly,
what happened. Oh, sorry.
yeah. No, go ahead.
Is that journalism stopped being a working class job? That I think is the actual problem, right? The average journalist used to be somebody who just hustled. You didn't have to come from Harvard or Yale to be a journalist, right? You just had to be able to hustle do deep dives, be like a dog with a bone and keep following a story. You had to be that.
Yeah,
That's
and you were an
not what that is
outsider.
anymore.
Yeah, you were an outsider of social class. I mean, you didn't have anything to lose.
Yes.
Really.
If you see all the old TV shows and movies about, reporters back in the day, they're all like, lone wolves out there. Like, how do we find this out? Where's Louis? We just go down and check him out, right? It was that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Now all the reporters are literally everyone who has a Harvard, Yale, or Princeton degree, and their job is writing for a newspaper, right? Or staying on Twitter, like that's, or going to press conferences. They're more worried about access than they are anything else. In fact, that's what it's called, access journalism, right? You're more worried about access than you are the truth. It doesn't matter anymore. And I think that piece was a critical change in our journalism. And who are some of the best journalists now? You look at the best actual independent journalists now, those who are online. Most of them didn't even go to college. And those that did not go to Ivy League, right? The people who have the most impact, who do the most things now in America, the most eyeballs, are not Ivy League people, right? Look at someone like a Joe Rogan as an example. That's not an Ivy League guy, right? That's who they are. I don't know. Allison, are you an Ivy Leaguer? Are you a Harvard grad?
No, but I did. I mean, I went to Wake Forest. I would say that's a Duke reject school. Like I wanted to go to Duke, but I didn't get in. So
gotcha.
but we still look down on UNC as our safety.
Oh, okay, so that's good.
Yeah, so we did look down on some people like
Good.
UNC. It's like it was like we were like safety school, but Duke would look at us as safety school. But anyway, I mean, I don't even remember college, so I don't know what effect. I don't know what effect it had on me. I do have a graduate degree. I went to Boston University School of Theology. I have a Master of Divinity degree, but Boston University isn't really a. I mean, I did go to classes at Harvard, and you know what? It was interesting.
You're one of them.
Well, you could go to any class for free in this consortium. Yeah, I know. I'm one of them. Well, a lot of people think I'm a plant anyway. So this is going to like tell, oh yeah, we knew she was a CIA plant, but you could go to all these different, they had this thing called the Boston Theological Consortium. I think that was what it was called, or Institute. Anyway, whatever. It was a bunch of the schools like Boston College, Boston University, Harvard, Andover, Newton, like a bunch of different seminaries. And so then you could like go to classes at these different schools if you're interested in it, and you didn't have to pay any extra money. And so I did go to a few classes at Harvard, and I'll never forget, this was a really interesting eye-opening moment for me, though I didn't really know what to make of it at the time. There was this Black theologian, James Cone, and he wrote a book called The Cross and the Lynching Tree. And it was like, Black theology, basically like comparing the cross and the lynching tree and Jesus on the cross, like the black man on the lynching tree. And he gave this talk that I went and listened to, and everybody stood up and clapped at the end. And I will never forget it. He said, if a group of white students at Harvard University gets up and claps for me after my speech, I must not have been clear. It was like dead silent. I'll never forget that. It was dead silent. It was like all these people had got up and clapped. I guess it was like the white guilt thing or whatever. And he was like, he wasn't having any of it. He was like, you must not understand what I said if you're clapping. I didn't beat you hard enough. Yes. It was great. But anyway, one other thing I wanted to say about the laziness too is I also had a Florida Highway Patrol officer tell me the same thing once. He was like, I realized a long time ago, he was doing public relations for Florida Highway Patrol. And he told me, like, as a PIO, that if he just put out press releases regularly and he kept reporters busy with stuff that, you know, he was leading the news cycle, that we were so lazy that we wouldn't be digging in their dirty laundry. And it was a very effective way to just be in charge of the news and never really have any of your, you know, your dark secrets out there because you kept them busy doing something else. And I was like, that's, I mean, sad that that's the truth, but it was very true. It is very true. And so it's probably worse now.
You also see it with the way they buy ads, right? And they'll buy a bunch of ads so they have control, right? I remember years ago, there was a company called Kerr-McGee. I think they still exist, but back in the days, maybe 20 years ago, they used to do a bunch of ads during the morning shows, Sunday morning shows. And Kerr-McGee at the point was talking about how they make offshore drilling sites for oil. That's what they build, right? Again, this is 20 years ago. I don't know if they still do it, but that's what they used to do. And the commercial was about that. And I thought to myself, who the hell is on Sunday morning shows going, I've run out of oil drills, offshore oil platforms. I need to buy some. We call it Kerr-McGee. No one does that. Like, no one is doing that. So I thought, why are they doing that? They were doing it to control the narrative. Meaning if they put $10 million in advertising on CNN or, you know, MSNBC, whatever the station is, well, now they can pull it. So if you start saying the wrong things, I pull my money. So it is a way of controlling the narrative. As long as I'm throwing money at you, you're not really going to attack me, because if you do, I'm going to pull my $10 million or whatever amount they were giving at the time. I made that amount up, obviously. But I think people also do it via ads. So they do it via press releases, information, ads. There are many ways of controlling the media. Absolutely. So hopefully one day, Allison, you'll get so big you can sell out.
Yeah, right.
Yes. When Kerr-McGee says, here's $10 million, start talking about how awesome we are. Maybe then you'll sell out.
Yeah. It'll be long after the FBI comes in and says, you know, you said wine, you know, wine is this wine tastes good and it clearly doesn't taste good. And this is a conspiracy to get people to be alcoholics and you're going to jail. So
yes, what they're going to say is you wanted them drunk on election day, so they wouldn't vote.
Yep.
So
exactly right.
That's right. Right there. That's your conspiracy to get people to not vote. You wanted to make sure there was low voter turnout.
Yeah. Right. Yeah, you're right. I want a low voter, so everybody be drunk and like pass out and be like, "Oh crap! It's November 8th."
I missed it. Damn. Exactly.
Okay, just wait. I hope Larry will represent me in court. Larry, it is Veterans Day. Before we go, I just want to say I used to MC Veterans Day. I don't know how I feel about Veterans Day anymore, because I just look how veterans are used on speeches on Memorial Day and Veterans Day, and it kind of makes me want to puke. But anyway, any thoughts before we go?
Today is actually the Marine Corps birthday. November 10th, 1775 was when the Marine Corps was created. We are 1 year older than the United States. We were created in Tun Tavern in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, as a way to have people who could fight ship to ship and could defend ships and such. We were the hardcore people of the naval forces of the United States of America back then. We were just the colonies back then. But yes, that's what we were. Very proud that we can always be counted on. But to your point about Veterans Day, which is tomorrow, I think our veterans have been absolutely used and abused, more ways than possible. Used and abused in unnecessary wars, used and abused when they believed they were defending our country and they were actually doing the bidding of the military-industrial complex, and it drives me crazy. And then when they come back, they are dismissed, treated poorly, not given the respect needed. And instead, to your point, we are given lip service. We are given, virtual signaling. We are given those types of things, but not actual help that we need. So yes, it is depressing. I don't watch Veterans Day services just like you, because it does just make me angry. But I still respect the vets who have, so many of them, tried their best to be good people. And then many of them have been battered by the system. And now many of them now are broken because of a bad system. And we should be fixing them. We should be working our best to raise each other up. My brothers and sisters who are veterans, happy Veterans Day. You should be proud of yourselves. I'm proud of you. It's a great source of pride for me, and especially for my Marine brothers and sisters. Semper Fi.
And you're right. Yes, tomorrow is November 11th, but today, apparently, because you got to give the federal employees their day off, so today they're celebrating.
Oh, it's observed. Yes,
it's
correct.
Observed.
It is observed today. Correct.
And my dad probably has the day off because he works. He's a surgeon at the VA. but he was a whistleblower and they retaliated against him. And so he's sued. And anyway, but he has all kinds of crazy stories about how, you know, if we try to go after the federal government, especially like in his case, on behalf of the lives of veterans, they will come after you in so many crazy ways. He could go do a whole podcast on that too. Maybe he should come on next time and talk about it. But anyway, yes, thank you, Larry, as always, for everything that you have contributed to the podcast. Where can people watch you and follow you? Because you have your own show.
Absolutely. You can check me out. Larry Sharpe Everything. It's Sharpe with an E, LARRYSHARPE. You can watch me on YouTube. You can watch me on Facebook. You can watch me on Twitter. I'm actually also on Locals too, Rumble, all the things. If it has something, I'm probably on it. I'm even on like Getter and Mastodon. I'm on all the things. Whatever it is, I'm on it. I hope to see you there.
Awesome. Okay, everybody. Thanks again. Have a great weekend. And if I am not in federal prison, I'll see you next time. But if I am, please share this clip. Thank you.